Nice.
We all holding drinks? Okay.
We're all
Wait.
holding drinks.
We're not all holding drinks. See, I've got my
There
drink
you
now.
go.
Yeah.
Are we all supposed to
Everyone's
give a
drinking
promo?
beer. I've got coffee. Hey, I don't want to get copyright strike for that.
That's right.
Anyway, welcome everybody. It's been a little while since we all got together, Earth's Mightiest Critics, to talk about a movie. So we're going to be talking about what should have been one of the biggest blockbusters of the summer. I guess we'll see as the weeks go on. But we are talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the third send-off for our beloved 1930s serial homage character, Dr. Henry Indiana Jones.
And this time we mean it.
Yeah.
Right.
Look,
Do they though? I mean,
Do they?
put the spoiler banner on. Let's go. No. Yeah.
I'm telling you, with AI, we're going to be.
I wonder.
If the first 30 minutes are any indication, please no.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, I am putting up the spoiler banner, Don. Thank you very much, because I don't know where this conversation is going to go. Full disclosure, everybody, and I know this is the case for some of Earth's Mightiest Critics. I discussed this on a live stream on Sam Carrico's show the day after I saw it last weekend, so you can check that out in the link below. I know there have been some other folks who've done podcasts on it, either appearing on it or hosting. So we'll see if our opinions have changed since we first talked about them. Have we seen the movie again since we first talked about it? What are our thoughts? I know some folks kind of high level opinions, but we're going to dig into this as a group. Oh my gosh, David, what was that?
That was the Uncanny Valley, brought to you by Kenner and Mattel.
Oh wow. Okay, hold him up to the camera, because he looked. All I saw was like crazy eyes.
I saw the Polar Express flash through my eyes right now.
This is pretty much the first 30 minutes of the movie, right?
Where's your ticket? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that should be a movie. Indiana Jones in the Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. That's pretty much what it was.
Has a certain ring to it,
But okay, so who are we? We are Earth's Mightiest Critics, as I've mentioned. I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have David Fowley of Keeping It Real. We have Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson and Film Obsessive, and Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of The Spoiler Room and Special Mark Productions. Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing all right.
Good.
All right.
How are you?
Yeah. That's a question.
A combination of tired and wired. It's. I'll kick things off, I guess.
Yes, please.
And here's the thing. Dial of Destiny is one of the rare movies. I've been thinking about this a lot this week, because it's something that's weighed heavy on my soul, because I'm like, can it be that I finally seen a movie where I did not like anything really about it? There are certain things.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else. Okay.
No.
Okay.
The perfect film. No.
Yeah. I was like,
here's the thing. There are things that I think I could have recommended if the dial had been set just a little bit to the left or right. But no, on balance, and it's weird, because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get all fired up and talk about this movie. I feel like I've come to grips with it. I'm not enervated. I'm not energized enough to really go after it. It's one of those things where, much like with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when I think about Indiana Jones, pretty much from now until probably the day I die, I will be thinking about Raiders, Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade. These are two footnotes, I think, possibly nobly well-intended, that do nothing more than to cement the legacy of that fine trilogy, and to show that some franchises don't need to be franchises ad infinitum. They can just stop where they are. Now, I do understand that there are people who really do get a kick out of this film. Mark, I know you're one of them. I know Jeff, who couldn't be here tonight because he's seeing an early screening of Mission Impossible. I can't wait. We'll be talking about that probably next or 2 weeks, I think. But
sweet, I'll be there.
Yes, awesome. But yeah, I know there are people who really dig this movie. There's people who hate this movie. There's people who are kind of in between. So we're going to go full spoilers and kind of talk out what we feel about Dial of Destiny. So I'm not going to take a back seat here, but I just want to let other people kind of, see if I can get some of that secondhand enthusiasm one way or the other. Love it, hate it, whatever. I'm fine to just kind of kick back and play referee on my own show. But all right. David, I kind of know where you're at. Mark,
Okay.
I know where you're at. Don, I
No.
don't know if I know what your
Sure.
opinion is.
No, this is a classic example of, at least for me, where my head and my heart have this tug of war about what to like and what to love and what to really appreciate about the movie. I have to admit, I like your word of footnote. I like your idea of there's not a lot of things to love, but it's kind of just there, and I'm not mad that it's there. I'm not mad that it's underperforming. I'm not mad that I gave it a 2 and a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Out of 5, is that?
Out of 5, I was
Okay.
2 out of 5. Where again, my head outweighed my heart. Where the over reliance on CGI is just, it's a lot. It's excessive. When this is the franchise that used to be kind of smart, spit and glue, really kind of use its wiles in terms of all the filmmaking tricks to make something unbelievable and kind of out there, approachable and exciting. And yeah, I know there's panes of glass between Cobras and our main stars, but we still you still feel like you're there, because guess what, there's still a snake kind of there. Whereas in this movie, they can't even take the time to like not animate bugs, like it's just, I don't know. As much as the new tools are there, and I get that you're going to go in that direction to make a newfangled advanced thing and really kind of push the envelope of what you can put the character and the adventure through. But at some point I really do miss the slower charm. And to your point, Ian, these are still very much footnotes, where you had the most perfect Toy Story 3 ending in 1989, and here we are. And I know I've gotten shit for this over the years, but this is the second Toy Story 4 of the Indiana Jones movies, where this is the Peace Corps little like extra adventure for fun thing, where it's just, it's wonderful to be there with Harrison Ford and to get this character for a little drink and a little longer, and a nice long sip for 150 whatever goddamn minutes the movie is. But it's just kind of like I said in Toy Story 4, and kind of like I said in other places, like if you're going to undo a really perfect ending, have something worthwhile to tell. And while there's a note or two here about retirement and the loss of his son in Vietnam and things like that, there's some story elements on that character that are worth telling that they just don't do. We're here for another MacGuffin. We're here for another chase. And we're here for something that's just too much. Now, you could still add a little bit more punch to that, no pun intended, with his right cross. But yeah, it's just missing. Maybe it's missing mangled well-intentioned. Maybe it's just missing the Spielbergian charm of like lead with heart, not with spectacle. And you can have both, because obviously Spielberg is the master. But this is just, other than what, a talk in the boat in the last 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. He's a moving bot in his own story, and it's sad to see for sometimes. So I'm conflicted, but I still landed at 2. So
yeah, that's a good summation for your feelings. I understand where you're coming from, and for the large part, I think I agree. Yeah. So, Mark.
No, I want to hear David's first.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll save the best for last.
all right.
No, it'll be the worst one, because then I'll be quiet here and let you all rip on it. So.
No.
That's right.
I mean, maybe, but no, David, go ahead.
Well,
You've seen it twice now.
Yeah. And the first time I saw it, I'm like, well, people are going to appreciate Crystal Skull more now. And I never had a problem. I mean, I had some problems with Crystal Skull, but not as many as other people. I guess I'm always going to be, well, Last Crusade had the perfect ending. We all know that. And, when Crystal Skull came around, I was excited for Indiana Jones. This should be interesting. And boy, was it. And so, nobody was clamoring for another Indiana Jones movie. Really, nobody was. So, okay, we're going to have an older Indy. This could be interesting. Let's see what happens. And I was entertained, but I still had problems, with it. Some of the problems that Don mentioned, especially, the technology, especially that the de-aging stuff, it just kind of sucked. And I have I feel like I could do like a whole essay on the 3 major iconic characters that Harrison Ford has played. Solo, Deckard, and now Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr.
Walton. When did we
Walton
learn
is
his
middle
middle
name.
name?
Yeah, it's on his ID.
In there. Yeah, it's in there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I just never picked up on that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think it's kind of interesting like a lot of people hate the fact that like, oh, well, these characters became sad sacks in their old age, you know, and in their 70s and 80s. I'm like, well, newsflash, that's what happens a lot of times.
Get ready, kids. Yeah.
We'll get into that because that's a major.
But I don't think it's a total. I don't think like Solo or you know, Deckard or Jones. I don't think they're complete sad sacks. Are they, you know, set in their ways, and do they go back to their own, you know, kind of thing? Sure. But you know, I like seeing the wear and tear of life and you know, the fatigue. Yet there's still kind of a spark. Now, you know, a lot of people disagree that in Dial of Destiny, you know, Ford's Jones has much of a spark, but you know, early on when he's, you know, doing his lecture, I mean, he's getting all giddy about the Battle of Syracuse, hint for later. You know, and he's still excited about his job. He still has a passion for his job, but you know, he's also sad and lonely and tired. And that's where life has him, you know, much like Han Solo, you know, and you know, Deckard, you know, he's a replicant. What are you gonna do? But you know,
he can at least program himself to be happy. No.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I did like to see, you know, one more. I was interested in seeing one more time with Ford as Jones, and I think Ford has lately been doing some amazing work, you know, and Shrinking in 1923, and great, you know, turnouts on television series, and I think, you know, I don't think he's phoning it in here at all. You know, could he have been given more to work with? The one thing that I really wanted after Crystal Skull was just a pared down kind of character study of Indiana Jones. You know, I mean, it seems like as these movies have progressed, there's this need to give him more supporting characters to work with, and that's really not necessary. I mean, imagine Crystal Skull without Mutt. Well, if you read the Frank Darabont, you know, screenplay, there's no Mutt. There's a lot of no things. In this movie, we didn't really need Teddy. We didn't really need. I mean, there's a lot of things just could have been pared down, I think, and you know, more conversations between Helena and Indy. I mean, all right. I'll get into all that a little bit more, but overall, I had a decent time, but that's not right. I should be having a great time at an Indiana Jones movie.
Good delineation.
Yeah. So, yeah, I actually think that, you know, some people are saying that this is better than Crystal Skull, and I'm like, I mean, I think that this is probably, you know, the lowest of them all. And you know, it's unfortunate, but granted, I was still entertained, you know, so I wasn't grumbling and complaining throughout the whole movie.
That's a shrink's couch waiting to happen, David. It's the lowest of the Indy films, and yet you were still entertained.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a testament to it's hard to make a bad movie with Harrison Ford. You know, let's just say it like that. Like,
well, they're out there.
I know they're out there, but when he's cooking his Indiana Jones, it's hard to like colossally go wrong. I know I did 2 out of 5 and all, but I'm still entertained. I'm still happy I'm there. You know,
I wish I could say the same. Mike, welcome.
Hello,
Mike Crowley. If you'll probably agree, we're going to get to you last because you are late to class, sir. You failed archaeology 201.
That's two people in Wisconsin.
I blink my eyes and it says you failed.
Mike could go. That's fine.
No, Mark.
I'm just going to sit in the corner.
Mark, you really want to go last. Okay, so
Yeah.
Mike, tell us what you thought. We're doing high levels real quick. What did you think of Dial of Destiny?
I think Dave was kind of on the money there. It's a movie where I'm entertained, but barely. it was a film that felt unnecessarily cruel to the character. I get like he was going through stuff, but we don't really need to see that. It's very repetitive in having the Nazi as the antagonist again, because they could go with other villains, but they naturally have to go to Nazis because it's an easy route to go. And also they use time travel, which is like a writing cheat that I'm not a big fan of. That I will admit, when they get to the big time travel scene, I was kind of like, oh wow, this is interesting. But boy, it just kind of felt like an easy way out. This movie felt like a fan film of Indiana Jones that wasn't directed by Steven Spielberg. So, having said all that, it was a dial of meh. It wasn't great.
I would be there with you, Mike, but I'm not convinced that the people who made this movie are actually fans of Indiana Jones. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
All right.
Mark.
Well, you guys all have a good night.
No, Mark.
I'm out.
Ellis, we have come to the
I love
leader
this
of cheer.
movie.
It's like
I
we're standing
enjoyed-
on our microphones like, what are you going to say, Mike?
I enjoyed this movie for even its warts. The first half hour of it, I don't know if there's something wrong with my glasses, but it's the same thing with the whole, the lip of Henry Cavill and Batman v. I'm like, I
still
notice
don't know how you didn't
anything
see that, Mark.
wrong
I
with
watched
his
that on
lip there.
Blu-ray.
It's
and
like a
still-
tear in a woman's lip. Come on.
I'll be honest, I didn't notice that either.
That
And
Harrison
I
Ford-
didn't notice Harrison Ford issues that you guys are having with the deep fake, because I was enjoying the story and the fact that the first half hour of this felt like a lost Indy story. I wanted to see this adventure earlier. This would have been, if they would have came out this story where Indy is hired to go and basically do a Monuments Men type missions in Nazi Germany after Last Crusade, that would have been a really cool story they could have done early on and still justified another film.
He was busy making Regarding Henry. So
Yeah, he was. He was.
Wow. I like that Monuments Men pull. That would have been a fantastic angle.
Yeah, and that's what they were kind of going for with this opening. I will fully admit, did we need this? Absolutely not. The original trilogy is beautiful. Did I like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? No, I did not like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I enjoyed this film a lot more than that, if nothing else, because as much as someone said that this felt like mean-spirited to the characters, this is far more respectable to the characters than it was than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where you have literally CGI groundhogs watching a mushroom cloud as Harrison Ford's in a refrigerator that gets nuked. Now, at least
there are some scenes to rival that in this movie, though.
No, there aren't monkeys throwing shit from their vines at Nazis.
There is Harrison Ford. I'm sorry, Indiana Jones hanging from a noose as a bomb drops right in front of him and kills everybody else in the room except for him. And there's not so much as a singed eyebrow.
But I don't consider that Ford.
But I'm saying, as far as being disrespectful to the character, the other films in the series would have found a smarter way to deal with that scene.
I guess that's disrespectful to logic.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about the plot Kevlar in this film, and I fully addressed it in my review. The plot Kevlar in this film is extraordinarily strong, more so than the other Indy films, but the other Indy films still had it until the plot called for it to Indy to get hurt. He didn't get shot. Okay, until it called for it, he didn't actually get shot. You had guys that could have easily taken Indy out sooner. But if we want to go that's a rabbit hole you don't go down, because you could make that argument for an extreme amount of films to where that guy should have been dead, the hero, long ago. Okay,
there's a difference, though.
No,
it's how many times you use it. You know,
right? I get it.
And how you use it and when.
Yeah, like take Raiders of the Lost Ark. We don't get fantastical until fucking ghosts are coming out of the box at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
You know? But by the time you're CGIing some ants and swinging on some branches with some monkeys, and then you throw the groundhogs and the nukes, and in this movie, like, there's so many fake things where horses in the subway that could never do what they do, and 1,000 things.
And also,
Voller, how many times
the main Nazi on that, who there's the big spectacular fight on the top of the train in the 20 minutes. It finishes with the Nazi guy on a train that's going at least 70 miles an hour in the dark and the rain. He gets clocked in the face by this arm or something that's hanging off the side, and he falls down into a chasm in the middle of nowhere.
His head
And he
would have been
shows
taken
up
off.
50 years later or whatever.
No scars.
Okay.
No
yeah.
scars, no deformities. He's just like, that's not a problem.
Okay.
It's how
this-
many times you're asked to suspend. And when in
Yes.
some movies, you don't have to be asked that many times. This one is like every scene asks you.
And
It's
in
too
that
much.
first, and it happens in this first spectacular 20. I'd heard from everybody like who'd seen this movie, like, oh, the opening 20 minutes is amazing. I couldn't get into it. I would have to watch it again to fully comprehend what was going on because I was so distracted, frankly, by the deep fake. Now,
The second
I
time
think-
I watched it, I will grant you that I was like,
Same.
okay, this.
Here's the problem with the deep fake. As much as I mean, first off, I thought I saw a face float outside of a face when they had the flashlight on Harrison.
there's
But,
a bunch of it. It doesn't
yeah.
work with when he
guess
in
when he
stills.
turns.
It's great when he turns.
Yeah.
When he talks,
Yeah.
you've got the old man voice.
Yeah.
The lighting
The
is
old
all
man voice.
inconsistent.
Irishman stuff,
and that's
yeah.
the problem. Harrison
Yeah.
Ford's so old. Like immediately, you're like, oh wow, he looks young. You're just like, okay,
The Irishman. It's just like Pesci and De Niro.
What are
Yeah,
you
it's just
doing?
like the Irishman. Yeah.
Well, the other
Yeah.
interesting thing, and if you guys do another rewatch, look for this. The famous shot in the trailer where he gets the bag ripped off of his head and it's like, oh my God, it's young Indy. He looks a very specific age. He looked like he would have back in 1945. The last shot of the prologue where he's standing, his face is right at the camera. They've just, I don't know if they're in the quarry or on the ground or something, but essentially there's a close-up, a hero shot of Indy. His face looks about 20 years older. He still doesn't look like 80-year-old Harrison Ford, but he looks like he's aged 20 years since we
In a
first
train
saw
wreck.
him 20 minutes earlier. The CG on the facial replacement isn't even consistent as far as what age is
No.
supposed to be.
And surprisingly, the only part of the de-aging that works in this opening, well, kind of works, are the close-ups. And that's surprising because you think those would be the ones
Yeah.
that are a little suspicious. But
And they hide.
it's these medium shots
Yeah.
and the action shots. And
They
like
try to
that
hide the
last
smoke
shot
in
that
the
Ian
dark, yeah.
mentioned when he's on the side of the hill with Basil, he's turning around and he's like, he gives Basil half of the dial and he's like, here. And I'm like, this looks like I don't know, PlayStation 2 or something, like a transition
Yeah.
sequence or something. It's yeah.
I did notice it's weird because, and it might be because there's a good enough difference between the actors' ages, but they do that even on Mads Mikkelsen's character, Voller, when he shows up on the train. You can tell his face is smoothed out of
Smoothed
it to
out,
make him
yeah.
look younger. And I thought, I still don't, I think part of this, admittedly, is the fact that I know these actors actually are the ages that they are. So it's kind of the companion to the uncanny valley. Like, I know that what I'm looking at isn't realistic because I know what reality actually looks like. So yeah, that's something that I can't, it's almost like color blindness or something. I can't get over it.
It just shows me that a lot of not enough people have seen Spike Lee's The Five Bloods, where they have that, they go back and they have that flashback scene and nobody's de-aged. They're all the same actors, and it's just a flashback scene, and you're invested. You go with it, and you might have to calibrate yourself a little bit at first, but sure, they could have had younger actors and everything, but I didn't feel a ripcord effect like I did here.
Well, I mean, we talk about the original trilogy. The opening of Last Crusade is a flashback with River Phoenix, who played Harrison Ford's son in the Mosquito Coast, which David and I watched last week. A fantastic movie. But you could find a young actor. Well, when I say young, you can find a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old person who looks enough like Harrison Ford, or hell, just say Dr. Jones, and people will understand. Wait, this is what that no one's going to be sitting there confused that they're not looking at actual Harrison Ford. Maybe they would be because we're so deep into this 20 years of trying to like digitally smooth out and de-age people that people would be up in arms about it. But I feel like you could find a younger actor, just call him Indiana Jones and say, hey, here's your 20-minute prequel. All right, who's your guy?
Anthony and Gruber.
That's the guy from Age of Adeline. He was a fantastic young Harrison Ford.
Yep.
Got the voice and everything. It's perfect.
That is the other person I was trying to think of. I was thinking of Ansel Elgort, who's been canceled. I was also thinking of Alden Ehrenreich. Listen, I know people crap on
Oh my gosh,
Solo.
it'd be so funny if they tried to push him on us.
That would be awesome.
What did he do to get canceled?
No, Ansel Elgort did from
romance
Baby
is
Driver.
people are a
He
little
got
too
Me
young for
Too.
him on TikTok. and
Oh
Instagram.
shit! Really?
Yeah, but the point is, even if you go with an unknown, there are people out there who could pull off, I'm sure, a convincing Harrison Ford.
Or even then, like take a young guy and put
David,
some prosthetics
the
on him, do
auditions
a
process
makeup.
is over. The movie's in the can
I'm
already.
too old. All right.
Yeah. But okay, let's jump ahead. And Mark, I feel like we got sidetracked talking about this opening. I want to just kind of dig more into
Your enthusiasm.
you were really swept up into this picture. So take me through it. Like, what did you respond to about the character, the story, and like it's better than Crystal Skull, fine, but where would you put it? Like, if you were to kind of slot it into the original trilogy?
Well, if you want me to rank them, Crystal Skull is my last. This would be above Crystal Skull. This doesn't meet up with the other trilogy. It doesn't mean that I didn't have a lot of fun. I guess I didn't see the issues that you guys are talking about with the deep fake at all. I was really enjoying the story, seeing Indy back in action. I think for me, I just connected so much with the Harrison Ford and seeing him back and seeing the fact that the spirit of this is far more in line with the other trilogy than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It wasn't nearly as jokey as the other one. Okay. As much as we say it's similar, you look at Crystal Skull, and the thing is, Crystal Skull had a great opening. It had an indie type opening to where he's at the vault and everything. And then he gets into the 50s replica town, and the whole scene, the only point of it was George Lucas wanted Indy putting his hat on, silhouette with a mushroom cloud in the back. That's the only freaking reason you had any of that, because it was set in the 50s. Okay. In this one, I feel like there's more effort being put into it. I had this discussion on our Patreon with Will Johnson, who also thoroughly enjoyed the film like I did. And I get what you guys are saying, and I'm not saying the film is by far perfect by any means, but as far as for the films that I've seen this past year, I was highly entertained. I liked the storyline. Would I have liked to see the solution play out a bit differently? Yes. But again, spoilers, folks, it was fun seeing Romans taking out Nazis. Okay. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy that as much as ridiculous. Now, the thing is, though, if you're looking at comparing this to a Spielberg approach to it, Spielberg would have either had the plane at the end miss the riff, because I thought that's what they were going with when he throws out the continental drift idea and they try to veer, and he misses the riff completely. And then you think of whatever could have been, or they swing into the past and immediately swing back out. And you get one of those moments like you were talking about, where you have a little bit, and you do have a conversation with Helena where he's talking about how he's feeling like he doesn't belong in this time anymore. He enjoys the past more. It's not given quite as much weight as it should. And we get that dialogue again in 200 BC when he's back there. If they had that conversation 10 minutes or even 15 minutes earlier, say on the boat with him and Helena, then they get to the part with the plane where he's almost debating whether or not he wants to go through the rift. It could have been rearranged a little bit better, but I connected with Harrison Ford mostly. I liked Waller-Bridge's character quite a bit. She reminded me on purpose, I know they wrote it on purpose, of a younger Indiana from like Temple of Doom. Okay, she reminded me that. Yes, you try not to compare films, but it's hard not to with an iconic franchise. So she has her short round in the form of Benny, I think it is, in a way, Teddy, excuse me, Teddy. But I liked the dynamic between them. I liked her being the fortune and glory person, a person we have seen Indiana Jones be in the past. So when he's warning her, he's like, I've been here, kid. This isn't, only now she's dealing with gangsters versus, selling it on the black market, but still, she's still selling stuff on the black market. I guess for me, I connected with a lot more elements in here. I enjoyed seeing Indy. Compared to what we had previously, this felt at least far more in the spirit of the original trilogy. I'm not going to say it's the equivalent of the original trilogy. This is like an epilogue. You're talking about these being pulp novel, story, adventure type films. This is like either another author comes in and wanted to write one more adventure, and you're like, okay, it's not like the original, but it has the elements in here. You have the puzzles in here. Be it short, you still have the puzzles in here. You have the speech, just like in every other Indy, to where he's giving a presentation on X marks the spot. And guess what? We later on in the film see that reference come back around.
I don't mind any of that. Yeah.
So there's a lot of components that are Indy. Now, the thing that I think for me, and I still gave it 5 out of, I came out very entertained. I gave it 5 out of 5. I did. I stayed by that. I will stand by it. 5 out of 5. Okay. Yes, I know.
John, you visited the White House recently. Sorry.
It might be, but I guess for me, I came out of there at least highly more entertained. I was emotionally moved by the last 5 minutes. I did not expect them to actually pull the trigger and bring Marion Crane back, and seeing Ravenwood, excuse me, not great. Seeing Ravenwood come back at all, actually have a scene with Indy and them kind of reprising the touching scene that we got in Raiders, bringing it back around as well. I enjoyed that part. And this is why I've always said I am not a critic. I'm not even sure why I'm here, because I tend to rate things a bit more on my emotions and feelings than I do on maybe technical aspects. And the film won me over emotionally far more than Crystal Skull. They kind of retconned Skull, but they still handle it to acknowledge he had a son, and then they kill him off, which I didn't mind. The thing is,
nobody did.
You know,
what are you gonna do with Shia LaBeouf?
We'll talk about.
I honestly didn't mind them cutting out Mutt like that. I'm like, they at least kind of tried. There's a lot of effort. Do they succeed in everything that they're trying to go for? No, I will fully admit that. But there's a lot more effort of them legitimately trying than George Lucas going, hey, I want to do Indy with spaceships, and Spielberg's going, fine, I'll do your film. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I guess for me, I just enjoyed the spirit in that, and the adventure movie, and the fact that we have anybody doing an adventure film anymore. I miss the adventure globe-trotting type films that we have. I thought it was going to be a bit of a resurgence for a while, where we were going to get that with like Uncharted came out, even though it wasn't that great, it was still an adventure film. We had Tomb Raider. I like these types of stories, and seeing them at least doing more Indy stuff in here, as far as his character doing Indy stuff, than in the previous film. You know, I liked that. I guess I connected a lot with his character. He still had the passion that he wanted to do adventuring, but he fully admitted that his age got the better of him. He's grumpy to his neighbor, not so much at the fact of he's always grumpy to his neighbor, but the fact that this is his retirement day and he doesn't want to retire. But at the same time, he has a young group who are far less passionate about this stuff that he is anymore, no matter how much he tries to sell it. So he's got a lot of things going on. He still wants to teach because he knows he can't really adventure anymore because he's at that age. And the fact that they kick him out and here's a clock, you know, and we find out he's only been at this university for 10 years. So he's been moving around. They've been trying to push him out for a while at other universities, possibly, you know, and I guess I just liked a lot of the elements that they did in here. And for me, I came out thoroughly enjoying the film far more than I thought I was going to. And I get the criticisms a bit. I guess for me, though, it touched me. I connected on an emotional level with this film a lot more than maybe some, and maybe that's why I rated it maybe so high, is because for me it was far more. It hit far more emotional notes and it hit far more fun notes for me than I highly expected it to be, because you know.
Yeah, I get it. Here's the thing: we've been talking about where Indy is at in this movie as if it was a fact of his life, and it's not. He's a character who's been written, and something we touched on earlier in the show, and this is a trope that's been happening to, I mean, I hate to say that these so-called internet trolls have a point, but a lot of people have been tracking what's been happening to these iconic IP characters over the last probably half decade or more, and it's a continuing pattern. You take a once beloved, revered male masculine hero,
Maverick.
and you turn him. Well, no, Tom Cruise is the outlier, and we will see when Mission Impossible trounces all over this Indiana Jones film's prospects.
But
in about a week
even
and a
his
half.
Maverick last year was treated differently.
It's true.
But
A little
Maverick never gave up on himself, and there's a difference.
That's
You
true.
look
Okay.
at you look
Yeah.
at what happened with Luke Skywalker. You look what happened with Han Solo. You look what happened with Nick Fury in that show that I will not watch. I mean, you take pretty much all of these, iconic characters are being shown to be bitter, broken men who have to have someone who's, young and spry come in and show them how it all works. And usually it's some woman with a British accent and brunette hair.
There are many. You're right. Tron Legacy. There are many examples of that whole thing.
Right. And so here's the point is, when you start looking at and I said this on Sam's show, I love The Last Jedi, but I think you get to do that once. You can have Luke Skywalker turn his back on everything and go off to be a hermit in the edges of the galaxy. You can even have Han Solo be divorced from Princess Leia and have, them broken up over issues with their son. But you can't keep doing that over the next 7 years and have people not notice and still be okay with it, because at some point it becomes a cliche. I think that's one of the reasons that people are staying away from movies like this in droves. This movie is not doing well. And I think the copy paste nature of, if you look at the parallels of Last Jedi to The Dial of Destiny, you've got the last time we saw our two romantically involved main characters, they were married, they were sweet on each other, they had a son, or they were going to have a family. And we catch up with them however many years later, they're divorced, they're both depressed. One son, in the case of Kylo Ren, might as well be dead because he's, or Ben Solo, now he's Kylo Ren. In this case, you literally have Mutt, who died in Vietnam, thus leading to the dissolution of the family. Indy is a broken, bitter old man in the beginning of this movie, and I think it's totally unfair. You can say there is an approach to the story where he's a 7-year-old man. He can't keep up with the times. He doesn't understand anything. He feels like a man out of time. I've seen that movie many, many times. I haven't seen the movie where it's Sean Connery in The Last Crusade who has a joie de vivre, and Indy's trying to keep up with him, in terms of adventure and trying to save the world. When he says that the quest for the Grail is not about archaeology, it's a race against evil. You've got the old man telling the world traveling adventurer, hey, this is about more than you think. We need to go on this big adventure because it's about something more. Not, I'm going to get dragged along by a goddaughter who's apparently the offspring of my best friend, who the dad is another crazy professor. He went out of his mind, just like in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Just like in Temple of Doom, you had this scene where it's like so out of nowhere, like they're in a cave and all of a sudden, whip pan, there's bugs everywhere, and then they disappear because all he did was check a box. Hey, you remember this? And then it's over without even the cleverness or the practicality of that scene from Temple of Doom.
Right. Copy and paste.
It really is. I feel like there's a version of this film, and I know everyone likes to rip on Mutt. He wasn't my favorite character, but if you give Indiana Jones a son who's like a young adult at the end of the last movie, and the idea is maybe he's going to continue on the adventure, there is a way to do this where you open up the film, perhaps with that conversation of Indy and Mutt having a fight about how he wants to go on his own adventure. He wants to go fight for his country. Right. And he ends up dying in Vietnam. Maybe that doesn't break him and Marion up. It's hard on them, as it would be for anything. But perhaps Indy then finds or is reminded of, perhaps even by his goddaughter, of this thing called the Dial of Destiny. And he wants to travel back in time to, set things right. As he says later in this film, Voller, the main Nazi character, we don't find out what his motivation is, which I think is a cool idea, until the movie is almost over. He just wants to get the Dial of Destiny. When we find out that he wants it to replace Hitler, I'm thinking about, let's go back to the prologue where you've got Indiana Jones trying to get this thing. Maybe he's at the bunker as the war is ending or something. He sees Hitler going into the bunker, and he knows that something is about to go down. But who steps out of the bunker? This random guy who then disappears into the future or something. Some big mystery, what is going on here, to open up the film, rather than this cold open where you just set up the MacGuffin. Again, like Star Wars, there's this thing and it's been split in two. We have to find a map to find the other part. It's video game logic all over again. The problem is they decided to tell, and someone here on the panel, maybe a couple of you have said, they decided to tell this story. Why? It's not because it needed to be told. It's because they have an IP and an actor who's not going to be around if they wanted, if they wait another 5 years possibly to really do this stuff. I get it, but when it comes to emotional involvement, I'm just sitting here wondering why and remembering the emotions that I got wrapped up in previous adventures. And I think Sean Connery said it best at the end of Last Crusade, Indiana, let it go.
Yeah.
I'll double down with you when it comes to like even the pedigree behind the camera. Like this is James Mangold. Like this isn't some hack either. Like we all saw Logan, and that's a hell of a send off where it's character first, spectacle second, like crazy in that movie. And he'll do Copland, where you have a failing adult character with Sylvester Stallone and somebody who physically and visually comes with iconography attached to him, and you break that character down into a lesser form and still make it have a heroic arc. Like that's kind of the half disappointing thing to me is you ruined my boy James Mangold. You gave him this lemon of a movie with all, like you said, all these dangling checkboxes and copy and paste when I know that guy can, when given maybe take the reins off, take the limits off, whatever it is. I know that guy has it in him to make a hell of a character study of what we're talking about. And you did, that was as the non-trailer watching guy, that was my biggest hope of promise is like, hey, I'll take James Mangold. I'll take 310 to Yuma. I'll take a lot of the things he's done. And then he comes in and just puts this. And I'm like, oh, man,
Yeah, and you kept to wonder if it's all his fault or if there was a lot of studio meddling saying, oh, we need to add this, we need to add that, we need to add this. And that's usually what happens with these movies.
Yeah.
Well, he's one of 4 writers, so.
Yeah.
There's your three other cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah, way too many.
Well, and this is, unconfirmed, but it's been floating around for a while. The ending of this film was initially supposed to be very different and Mangold has denied this, as has, the studio, but seeing how the end of this movie is very clearly tacked on with a blackout.
Oh, yes.
I will not be surprised in 5 years when Mangold himself comes out after Disney throws him under the bus for this flop. And he says, yeah, that initial ending was real. Essentially, Indiana Jones, and this is back when the dial apparently was an actual time travel MacGuffin and not this weird Frankenstein monster of it's not a time machine. It uses math to find rifts in space-time that are just hanging out that no one has discovered or flown into.
It's like interdimensional beings.
Yeah. It's the end. It's the climax of Donnie Darko. Oh, well, let's remind me about the space aliens in a minute. But initially, allegedly, the Indy was going to kind of sacrifice himself, but essentially be erased from history. And Helena Shaw was going to not only take over the reins of Indiana Jones, like become like, oh, this is who the next franchise is going to be. But there was allegedly a montage of scenes from the original trilogy where she was Indiana Jones.
We're gonna call her Indiana Jones.
Oh, no, that's too much erasure. I don't mind.
Again,
like if he would have stayed in 213 or whatever that was, if he would have stayed there with that noble departure, tell Marion I love her, and send her back through the rift, and then maybe your tack on ending is you find his tomb someday, Well,
and that would have been
amazing.
That would have also been a callback to what Belloc said to Indy and Raiders is, maybe someday people will find your bones. Also, help me out with this. When Indy wakes up in 1969, after Helena Shaw punches him out on the beach, why was there no? Maybe this happened or something because he didn't turn on the news. But you'd think that a Nazi warplane landing in the Battle of Syracuse, not to mention maybe some bullet casings, they get washed away by the sea, but it's hard to miss a giant bomber that's been cooked out on the beach in terms of historical artifacts. The watch in the tomb of Archimedes is one thing because it's like it's a watch. Maybe his friends buried him and they knew the truth and they hid him away. But a plane, Also, talk about the broken old man, and I don't understand the changing times. You're talking about 1969. You're talking about the space race and all this other stuff, and there's this weird thread of like, I don't want to watch the moon landing. I don't care about the space. Motherfucker, you found out like 15 years ago that aliens actually exist.
Yep.
You're an archaeologist.
Mhm.
Your whole thing is about digging into ancient civilizations.
Mhm.
You would be jumping up and down being, can I get on the next space shuttle?
Yeah.
None of this
know.
movie makes sense.
It's again, is it worthwhile bringing him back for this and shifting what they do for this? And some of it can play and work. Like, I don't mind the Vietnam thing. Like other people have said, like that's some anchor, that's some stuff you can put on him. But the rest is just and then you overbake it with all of the CGI just to say you can put him there, like I have no clue how much of that ticker tape parade is a green screen with confetti. It's ridiculous.
Or it's a stuntman with a Harrison Ford mask.
It's which we've seen a little bit of. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because watching it, because this is Lucasfilm, this is Disney, and they famously have used the volume to great effect in The Mandalorian, to awful effect in Ant-Man 3, and I think to awful effect here, because that ticker tape parade, there are, like, I was looking at this one scene in particular. You had Harrison Ford and the horse. You had Boyd Holbrook as the lead neo-Nazi
Trigger
henchman.
happy, yeah.
Right. Then you had all the confetti flying, and you had a parade of like what almost looked like chorus or marching girls. And then you had everything else behind it. It looked like those 4 elements that I mentioned just there were on a giant soundstage, and everything else was being projected behind it. You look at the way the light reacts to or bounces off their heads. It looks like they are on the soundstage of a commercial. It's just like this little silhouette hitting the top of their heads. There's no natural light hitting their faces.
If it's not green screen, the newfangled thing is the LEDs, right? The big wall LEDs like they used in Gravity and such, and like First Man, where that's the new thing. Is it like the new form of rear projection is really, really good LEDs, and you put everything else in front of it, right, Mike?
Yeah, it's called the egg. It's like a huge, 360 space where you can. It's the next level of green screen, where you can actually put in the background of a movie, because it's constructed through Unreal Engine, which is a video game engine, but you can also use it for real life stuff, for visual effects. And that's why, like, if you ever see The Mandalorian on a big screen, it's going to look fake as hell. But you see it on your television, it's designed where you can just watch it on like maybe a 42-inch screen or something like that,
or a phone,
or on a fucking telephone. Yeah.
Is the technology becoming so good that we have to watch on smaller screens? Are we going back?
Like,
I don't know.
They use it.
Like
Spielberg used it in The Fablemans. Like they use it. You can use it in smaller, less super effective things. Like,
where did he use it in The Fable?
Here, the tornado scene with Michelle Williams towards the beginning of the movie. The car and her are real. Everything else is the newfangled version of rear projection, like you're driving with the background in the in the TV show.
Okay.
But everything happening around her, storm-wise and whatnot, is all the LEDs, not green.
Yeah.
There's an indie film that I just that of a follower I found that they went down to. It's one of those online universities sale.
Full Sail.
Full Sail. Yeah. They've got an actual Unreal Tournament 4 stage that she went and shot an entire film on, to where she had an entire interior of a house, and she showed the before and after scenes, to where the before scenes are the practical stuff. Some of it is real couches, some of it is wrapped with green, whatever, and some of it was green LED in the hot. And then she showed, like, through a wipe what they actually made it look, and it legitimately looked like the inside of a full, like a Victorian house of sorts.
Was she a student there?
No, she's just she had an agreement. She talked to someone at Full Sail because it was something that they're teaching, and she was able to utilize and work with them to do work with it to kind of try it out. And she said, it saved her a bunch of money, because they didn't have to go to location or whatnot, but it looks like a location, and I'm gonna fully say
Gravity and First Man.
Look
at those two.
I could really use that for a movie. I gotta find a desert, and I'm like, well, where am I gonna get a desert outside of Nevada?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna transport my crew there.
Just go to Florida.
Go to Florida. But I will fully admit that out of all the scenes, and I love this film, and yes, I rated it high, but I will say, and I've said it to everyone I've talked to, the ticker tape parade, it didn't look good in the trailer. It didn't look good in the movie either. It didn't take me out of it because there were enough elements that just as I was starting to get out of it and go, well, there was some fun parts that brought me back in. But overall, I will say out of all the sequences, the ticker tape parade was the one that I wish they hadn't done, and they didn't need to do it that way. And that's frustrating to see, and we've seen it in other recent films to where you could have just gone simpler this way and still done the same thing. And all honesty, I think it's the digital age has ruined film, because if you actually are paying for film stock, you are doing far less excessive stuff than just going down to the Best Buy and buying another hard drive because we just filled up this one. It's not just now, but in the last 3 or 4 years, carelessness partly is because as far as the way you're filming it, the equipment initially is expensive, but digital stuff, shooting it digitally, still far cheaper than ever doing it on film.
And yet, this movie's what, $295 million in budget?
Yeah.
That's the production.
Obscene.
That's the
And
production.
that's just a
budget.
production.
That's not even the marketing. So then you get into the marketing. What number are we looking at? Oh my god,
that's a lot of CGI. That's expensive stuff. Or filet mignon buffets right out of Scorsese's.
Speaking of CGI, what about that underwater scene in the Aegean Sea?
David, that was the one time where they got real eels for that. I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. But CGI is kind of ruining action in movies these days because the stakes of what they're actually doing on set, you don't feel that. You feel like you're watching a cartoon, mostly because these creations are made on programs that are made for video games.
I miss miniatures. I was Independence Day obviously had a little anniversary because it's a great movie, and July 4th was just behind us. But Blown at the White House with miniatures looks great.
Or look at the Lord of the Rings trilogy; they use miniatures, and those look gorgeous because they filmed on film and they use this little CG spot. Because I'm not going to bash CG. CGI is terrible. No, CGI
it's a necessary evil. Yeah,
in the right hands and used sparingly. I mean,
exactly.
I think I am not the big James Mangold fan that I think a lot of folks are, and but a lot of that just happens to come down that I hate the stories of most of his movies that I've seen. I'm not a fan of Logan, and when I found out, I did. Yeah. It was okay. I mean,
entertaining.
It's technically very competent.
I dug
it. I think Mangold is up until this movie, and I don't want to put this all on him, but I think he's a pretty competent director. But I think the problem, and what I think you're kind of getting at it, Mark, when you mentioned this filmmaker who found Full Sail or got into an agreement with them to shoot her small film using this technology, I immediately imagined a picture of this person in my mind. I don't know who she is or what she's like, but I imagine someone young, someone hungry, someone innovative. I'm thinking about Neil Marshall when he made Dog Soldiers, talking about miniatures when he blows up the house at the end. There's a whole thing on the Blu-ray about how they set that up, and it still just blows my mind. A guy who said, you know what? I've watched enough movies. I got some friends. Let's go make a movie. He made a short that was really innovative. It was mostly done through sound effects, shot in black and white. And he was like, okay, what's the next step? We're going to make a werewolf movie because I fucking love werewolves, and we can put it together. They need someone like that.
Look at
they need Spielberg in 1980, who was 5 years out from making Jaws, the movie that put him on the map. We need a young Spielberg to make this movie, not James Mangold.
Yeah, I think of stuff like and I know Gareth Edwards had that shot for a second there when he went from Monster to Godzilla to Rogue One, where if there was a guy who came up in the practical sense, started to bring the new tools and the bigger things that he did, like he had some potential to maybe make something half and half. Well,
he's got another one coming out in September.
Well, and that thing looks. That maybe we'll see where the blend is there in terms of CGI and people, but or somebody like what's that in the Vast of Night, something like that, like where atmosphere and style can replace and obviously character work can hide spectacle, or at least tamer it down when you don't need it till you need it, and Not everything has to be huge. Like you're talking about the ticker. We're all talking about the ticker tape parade. You could have had that chase down random New York alley number 7, and it still would have been just fine. You know.
Yeah, and you know who I haven't mentioned his name in a little while, but I think an obvious person to direct this or someone like him would be S.S. Rajamouli. You know, imagine what the director of RRR would have done with an Indiana Jones movie.
That would have been fun. That would have been fun. I was the person who was in my mind was Matt. Is it Reeves? Is that it? The guy who directed Batman, Cloverfield.
Matt Reeves, yeah.
Matt Reeves.
Yeah.
And the Apes movies that are another perfect blend. Yeah.
If you want to talk about mood, like the Batman was all about mood and broodiness. And yes, the Planet of the Apes film, incredible. And you want to talk about the correct usage of CGI. If you look at which one was the second Planet of the Apes movies in that
San
trilogy?
Francisco?
That one relied heavily on a CG main character, as well as other ones. But
look at those sets.
But because of the sets and everything else they put on it, there's a practicality to it. Like, yes, we know the apes are fake and all that because you can't have real monkeys talking. But considering what they had, I know, shocking, right? But considering what they had, it's amazing he pulled that off, and he would be a good choice for this movie.
I bet those movies are half the price of this one.
If I said it right, he would have been.
All we need is a dial to go back in time and give this over to a more competent director.
Yeah, it just needs to go through those clouds to find the better one.
Well, okay, I do want to step. I know I just kind of trash Mangold, but I do want to stand up for him a little bit, as if he needs my defense. You know, we talked a bit about studio meddling, you know, budgetary constraints. I know we talked. It's a very high-priced movie, but I'm sure, especially given a lot of the stories we've heard from effects houses, plus this was, from what I understand, a largely or partially pandemic filmed movie, he faced a lot of challenges. And so what the big stories coming out of most Disney products in the last couple of years since like post Endgame is they all kind of look like garbage, with the rare exception because like all the effects houses are going to, you know, the lowest bidder are trying to get on these contracts. They're given like no deadlines. So maybe if this had the time and the effects houses of whoever did Planet of the Apes. I mean, I know that was Fox. Fox is now owned by Disney.
That's all Weta from New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it would have. Oh yeah. Jesus. You get Weta on this thing. I forget about it. So yeah, here I am not opposed, or I should not have been opposed to the idea of Indiana Jones 5. It's just that I suspected going in, and my suspicions were borne out, that it was going to end up a largely compromised box office IP driven motion picture rather than something that's like, okay, as I kind of joked when we opened this up, I'm like, it's his third send off. Well, yeah, I mean, he already literally rode off into the sunset. At the end of this one, he grabs his hat off the balcony. I'm like, oh God, no, don't leave it open. Just stop.
I know.
Let Helena Shaw run off and we'll pretend that she's going to have her own adventures that I won't watch. I really disliked Helena Shaw in this movie. I know you guys are saying that she was, you know, the Fortune and Glory thing from Temple of Doom. That Temple of Doom, I think Dave reminded me of this recently, was actually a prequel that took place before Raiders, before possibly Indy had a conscience or, you know, about what he was doing. Like, this belongs in a museum, not in my bank account. She leaves him to die like 3 times in this movie, and there's no amount of, you know, goddaughter guilt that can make me overlook that when I'm crossing the world and Nazis are after me. Like, after the second time, I'm going to be feeding her to the Nazis.
Or you have the same Nazis who are, no matter if there's a ticker tape parade, an entire Mediterranean Sea, or a massive, huge town, they always seem to be the exact same step as everyone else. Like, they were magically easily the best chase and pursuance in the world.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, initially, it seems like the only reason he's on this adventure is to clear his name for, you know, murdering his colleagues and everything.
And those charges were completely dropped when he got back to modern day 1969. Look, when she punches him out on the beach, there was a guy behind me who didn't say it, but he kind of whispered it. I heard him go in shock. He said, I'm sorry, I'm going to swear for the second time in the show. He said, what the actual fuck? I'm like, I'm there with you, pal.
I mean, I know he's shot and he's bleeding out, but he doesn't go down with one punch. And I don't want to do the whole from a girl thing, but No, he doesn't go down in one punch. It's Indiana Jones.
Well, on top of that,
Dude.
think about the logic of that situation. They're on a beach in what 200 BC or 13 BC or whatever. They're in the middle of a war because even though the plane crashed and they got what they wanted, there's still a war happening all around them. So she knocks out Indy, drags him onto the plane. Teddy, who's never flown a plane before, and
with
they
help from the
established this.
Italian pilot.
Oh,
Well, okay,
squeezing
sure.
4 people on that plane. Oh my god.
4 people into that what's at best meant to take 2 people. They find enough runway to get off the beach in the midst of people firing weaponry at them
The people
to
were
fly
running
back
away.
into this.
This is a guy
Well,
who could fit on a fridge.
The
I'm
the-
sure he could fit in a plane.
The Romans were
Overhead
running
compartments are
away by
huge.
this point. I'm going to defend this part. While I don't
All right.
agree with it, the Romans were shown in the back. They're shown running away.
Well, then the Greeks are WTFing and running over there like, don't
if
hurt
they
our
see
but
a
they
pirate.
plane, they're gonna
Look.
wonder what the hell that is, and they might.
For the time travel part, I fully agree that I wish they hadn't pulled that trigger. Okay, it didn't take away from my enjoyment. I wish they didn't. But if we start digging with that, well, then all you Marvel fans go back to Endgame and explain.
Fine by
that
me. I
still-
hate time traveling.
that time travel. I
Well,
dislike,
no,
I
I'm-
dislike
I'm
the
not-
time travel gimmick
I got
in
you.
general.
That's
got you.
fine, but I'm
I
talking
don't.
about
Agreed.
I'm talking about all the stuff that happens during this 10-second blackout is a 25-minute scene of film that we never see.
True.
And I
No.
think it's because they axed and went back and denied all they want, reshot this ending that didn't work, that
You know what
test
fixes
audiences
it?
were ripping up the sheets.
You know what,
What fixes it?
One more red line map of where you take the body of Indiana Jones back to New York. That solves it.
That marks the spot. There it
Yep.
is. Put the head
A
on
little
top
stop
of the
motion
piece.
animation.
They're not going to admit
You see
that
him like
they-
on
They're
the
just gonna play
plane,
a sad version of the
They're-
song.
I like the ending of where they went with this. Just because they got him out of the past. I'm going to say right now, probably did shoot the ending, but they won't admit it at least for another 10 years
Mhm.
because the studios, especially this one and especially Disney, listen to internet trolls and they listen to the internet outrage in
That's true.
general. They probably were fully setting up for it to be handed off to her.
And I think they made the right decision
because
because she is not an Indiana Jones
No,
character.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it was the right decision, but I'm saying the way this is done tells me how they were possibly going to end it. Which actually, Indy being in the past in 200 BC, we're not talking like he went 100 years past. He's in 200 BC.
2,000 years.
Or
2000
there's
years.
there's a lot of time in
Yeah.
between to where things could get buried and forgotten. And Indy's whole thing is finding the forgotten stuff, but still he could have. There's a lot of different ways they could completely melt down the plane. They could I'm just saying a lot
Yeah.
of that could be explained
Especially
away
if he's there to help
if
put all
he
that away.
stays right. If he
Yeah.
stays knowing the stakes of if this stuff is still around.
Right.
But then studios go, well, we got to hand it off for another franchise. I'm not saying it's a good decision or not. It's going with what Ian was saying, what's in the script. I'm guessing they either shot it or started to shoot it, and that's why they did the punch with the blackout and then do the Marion thing, because what they originally intended was handing it off to her so that they could keep the IP going. I wouldn't doubt it for a fact that they did that.
Agreed.
It didn't test well, so they shot this, but they have to figure out, well, how do I get him out of here without getting everybody back? Oh yeah, we'll cut to black and we'll have him put. I'm not. So yes, I'm saying
I'm
yes,
hearing a
there-
4 out of 5 movie, Mark. I'm just
I'm
There
hearing a
are
little.
but I still give
I
it.
hear
a
the
5.
ticking of the clock.
No,
Yeah.
I'll still stand by my rating, even with its
Dialing
warts.
that.
But
Here's the thing. Mark, you said something that I don't quite agree with, but I think that there's a way to mend the story a little bit. If Indy were to stay in the past, this whole thing about like there's nothing left for me in the present. I mean, there's Marion. I know that apparently their relationship is so terrible and broken up, and yet when they get back to the present, it takes one phone call from this woman that Marion's never heard of before, probably, to say, "Hey, your husband's back." She'd be like, "Well, so I hate him," but no, she shows up and everything's great, and they do the little, "Oh, where does it hurt?" From 50 years ago, they remember that whole exchange. I mean, I get it, but that's for the audience and not for the story. But the thing is, like, if Indiana Jones, a motivation for him to stay in the past isn't, I'm so sad, I just want to stay here and die. That is not Indiana Jones, and that's certainly not the character we've seen even in this movie, really. But if, to Mark's point, he sees that there's a plane there, and he's like, look, this can't be discovered, and you guys have no way of actually getting rid of this. I've been chasing this stuff down for 40 years. If you want, I can help you get rid of the evidence because there's a real danger of this being discovered. He sacrifices himself. He stays behind. I don't know exactly how that works, but it's a nobility thing.
I love it. Yeah.
You
And
know,
then we find, again, I love this. Like we find his bones. It's like the end of, what is it? Michael Crichton's timeline where we find Gerard Butler's. Gerard Butler's tomb,
Here's what you do. He stays in the past. We have him on the beach, watch the plane go through the crease. If Fisher, it closes,
and then he gets shot with an arrow.
No.
Sorry.
It fades. It fades or whatever.
Yeah.
It fades to black. The black, though, is changed to a black wall where someone's carving out a brick in a wall of an ancient ruin. They don't find all of it. They find his whip and his hat sitting on an altar, and you fade with the Indy theme. At least you don't get his bones, but you have his artifacts sitting somewhere
next to a Nazi plane.
That belongs in a museum.
That is a depressing
Yeah.
ending.
But you know
Who
what?
wants to see Indiana Jones
Well,
dead?
that's where I'm at with Mangle. Like we got the Logan depressing ending. Like the writing on the wall to me was like Blaze of Glory. Here we go. Something's going to go down where this is his last. Like very Force Awakens ish. Where like something I thought for sure 99% he was going to die.
I kind of wanted him to. In all honesty,
honestly, it would have been more heroic if he died in a way.
Right. That's what I mean is that we go with Ian's where he has to stay back to cover all this up and try to patch this up. And then we fade to black and then we find his artifact, and even have a voiceover of someone talking about a hero. We're trying to find the artifact of someone who was very heroic in whatever time or whatever, spin it up so that you find out that, yeah, he was in the past and he helped them cover it up. But this mysterious hero that's been in legends and designed, in whatever hieroglyphs or whatever, have someone searching for that. A little 5-minute scene where they're looking through books or someone has their own notebook with a hieroglyph, little cheesy, but still they break through the wall. You find the rope, the
What's a
whip
fedora
and a
doing
hat
here?
or just a fedora. And then you fade to black Indy theme. There you go. Because you at least know he did something in the past that,
I would love that
going.
I would love that.
And while it may not exactly be the best, it's a better out than some of the other choices that they
like
would.
This.
Yeah. I think there are much like a lot of the story elements that are actually in this movie. There are kernels, there are seeds, there are ideas that could work. Just it's almost like choose your own adventure, but they chose like all the wrong paths.
Fair.
I still like seeing Indy end up in sweatpants and a pajama top.
Hey.
Yelling at his downstairs neighbors to keep it down. Oh yeah, this is exactly what I want to see. Yeah.
No. I feel like Indiana Jones. Well, that's the other thing is like, okay, I understand he's been at Hunter College for 10 years. I don't know. I think there's another idea like where you can play with the Bruce Wayne Batman duality. And I kind of talked about this on another show, but wouldn't it have been fun if you open it up kind of the same way you do now? He's going to his retirement, or he teaches the one last class. Nobody cares. He gets the stupid clock, but then he goes back. He drives to the airport and he gets on a plane, and that's where he takes out the hat and the whip or whatever. He's off to a big adventure. Like to the outside world, he's just this boring old professor, but he's still going out there and adventuring. That's one of the cool things I've always liked about Indy since Raiders you open up, he's a guy running from a boulder, and then the next thing you know, he's delivering a lecture in a class. All the girls love him. But that's the other kind of weird thing that doesn't quite jive with this, where I feel like they really had to force a lot of story elements onto Indiana Jones that didn't need to be there. This guy would have been like in 1969, after decades of adventuring and retrieving all these artifacts and having all these worldwide connections, he would have been a celebrated.
Oh, he's on Dick Cavett.
Almost, he'd be like a media figure. And I think going on that one last adventure, it would have taken, possibly trying to save Mutt. Like that's the one thing that really brings him down, but we would actually get to see that. He's at the top of his game. He's brought low. Maybe he sulks for a little bit like Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy, and then he comes back because that's what Indiana Jones does. If you had told me when I was a little kid watching Last Crusade that, you know what, in 30 years they're going to do another Indiana Jones movie, and at the end of it he's going to be so sad that he wants to die. I'm like, I don't even understand what language you're speaking to me. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
life happens.
It does. And like you said to open it, David, I don't mind the lows. I don't mind, but Ian's right too. Like, I don't mind if this was the chance to see much death in Vietnam and a disillusioned marriage and the difficulties of age and all that. But to Ian's point, he's still on it. Like, you can get away with that as a trope only so many times with these legacy sequels, and Last Jedi got to it first, So, well, it didn't get to it first, but it did it the best. Versus some of these other ones where, it looks copy and paste.
Yeah. Well, Last Jedi, my only complaint was, like, once the character of Luke Skywalker actually changed, they kill him off instead of using him to more of an advantage for the plot.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't know Carrie Fisher was going to die, so.
Yeah, I mean, of all the age stars, she would be the one I would bank on the least for staying alive. Like, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, my joke was that when she died right around the time that Rogue One Rogue One came out, right?
Like the week after, there was like the young CGI her.
Yeah, because
I know
right at Christmas.
My joke at the time, which was really inappropriate, was, well, maybe she finally saw Rogue One. But anyhow, we're gonna leave it on that lovely note, that classy ending. Gang, thank you very much for hanging out and talking Indiana Jones 5.
Dial of Depression.
Hey, as with all of these conversations, kiss my elbow, David. No, I may not have enjoyed the film, but I really did enjoy this conversation.
You always say that,
but it's always true. The agreements, the disagreements,
it's like a cut and paste. That's cut and paste.
Yeah.
You can get away with that.
You know the mark.
But you can't, keep using it every so often. That's just cut and pasting right now.
Okay, so one of these days I'm gonna have to have a conversation that I really don't enjoy. No, it's and Mark, I understand. Look, I am envious of your enjoyment, your enthusiasm of this film. I genuinely mean it, because I love it when people get emotionally invested in movies, even when, and especially when I just can't connect to it, because I start wondering about my own shortcomings. Maybe I was born without a heart. Oh my God, Indy.
And here's the thing: is that's fine. Everybody here, having the mirror opinion of me, I'm completely fine, because I will say it once, I will say it always. It is why I enjoy film. You can have 200 people sit in an audience, watch the same movie, and every single one of those people, even while they might have some commonality in their opinion, will get something different out of a movie. It depends on what you are feeling going into the film, what you might have subconscious expectations, what you have for conscious expectations, whatever. Even as critics, I think it works your emotions and how you feel, or how it moves or doesn't move you.
Whoa, we got a comment.
Affects your criticism.
Well, no, Mark, finish your point.
That affects your criticism of a film. I saw someone doing an entire thread about critics and reviewers and who is qualified to actually be a critic or not. And it was actually a very interesting conversation about being academic versus being a reviewer and such. And it's very interesting. I mean, everybody sees something different. You guys didn't dig it. I dug it. Will I watch it again? If I had my choice between watching this and, say, Last Crusade, I'll watch Last Crusade. Okay. If I had my choice between watching this and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I'll watch this far above watching Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Okay.
Let's go back and watch Crystal Skull again, because I watched it once. I hated it, and I vowed never to watch it again. But
I watched it 3 times.
Three times.
Okay,
well, let's end on a comment.
Microsoft
says
joke.
The movie need to be a half hour longer so we get to see Indy and Marion die slowly in a
retirement home.
It's like The Notebook.
I think these studios need to learn that, like, casting old actors in their old roles doesn't really make a lot. Look at The Flash. Everyone's like, Michael Keaton's coming back. Michael Keaton. And then when it came out, and everyone's like, we don't care. Like,
But
That's writing and
I will
content.
Same
stand
with
up for
Indiana
Keaton in the
Jones.
Flash. I thought he was one of the highlights. I will
He
say
was.
it is strange to see Indy in his old outfit because I mean Harrison Ford has, you know, he's nicely built, but he's a little bit too big for that jacket. Like you can see that
Oh,
tie is straining a little bit and the jacket's kind of falling to the side a little.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, I get it's an IP, you know, staple and everything, but has he really never changed clothes in like
So
45
you're saying
years?
he needs like a members only jacket and some New Balances? What's going on here? Like, what does he need? Some Dr. Scholl's?
while
Yeah.
he raids her
Get
temple.
over on the
Oh
boots.
my god.
No.
All right.
Travis Mitchell's
Oh.
comment.
Travis Mitchell, I love how
Ah,
Indy and Marion
geez.
hug. We see him grab the hat, implying he wears it while he raids her temple.
Oh! This is true.
It's exactly what they were implying. Absolutely.
I was
Here
a
comes his
child.
boulder.
Every cowboy wears his hat, right?
Oh! It's true.
That's not the C cup of a carpenter. Anyway, we're gonna go, everybody. Thank you. We have myself. I'm Ian Simmons. We have David Fowley of Keeping It Real, Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson, Philip Obsessive, and I forgot Cinephile Hizzy Fit podcast. Mark the Movie Man Krawchak of Special Mark Productions and The Spoiler Room, and Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree. All their information is going to be down below. Please like, love, support, follow all my friends and colleagues. And join us back here probably in a couple of weeks because we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible 7?
Dead
Reckoning
Reckoning, part 1.
Reckoning
Yeah.
Part 1, so it gets even more confused.
Oh yeah.
Oh, all right, fine.
Ah,
And Andy says to Marion, honey, this belongs to Okay.
Keep
All right.
it going.
No, we got to get off
Okay,
this.
okay,
We
okay.
gotta
These guys
jump
need
off
their
this
own
train.
show.
I love you, Mike. Thank you.
All right.
Need the show.
Cool. Well, I love all of you. Thanks for watching. If you like this, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And yeah, till next time, whenever that is, whatever that is. Thanks. Take care. And
Go see
who wants to
Mosquito
sing
Coast.
sound? Dun, 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 dun. Wait, what?
X marks
Go
the
see
spot.
Mosquito Coast.
Yes, go see Mosquito Coast if you can find it. All right, bye.